The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the dark between stars. It was bigger than most moons, with thousands of lights blinking across its metal surface. Ships from 12 different alien races moved around it like busy insects. Today was not a normal day. Today the galaxy was in danger. Inside the station's biggest meeting room, representatives from every major civilization sat around a huge circular table. The room was so large that voices echoed off the walls. Each species looked completely different from the others. Some had scales, others had feathers. Some breathed different gases and sat in special bubbles. All of them were worried. At the head of the table sat Vexcol, a tall bird-like creature with golden feathers and sharp black eyes. As the current leader of the Galactic Council, he called the meeting to order. His voice was strong and clear. "Friends and allies," Vexcol began, "we face the greatest threat our galaxy has ever known. The Void Swarm has destroyed 3 entire star systems. Billions of lives are gone. We must act now, or we will all share their fate." The room grew quiet. Everyone had heard the reports. The Void Swarm was unlike anything they had ever seen. Ships that seemed to be alive, made of both metal and flesh. They ate entire planets and turned them into more ships. They left nothing behind but empty space. Kieran, a tall crystal being from the Helix species, stood up. Her body was made of living glass that sparkled in the light. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes. "The Helix fleet is ready," she announced. "We bring 200 shard ships. Each one carries enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. We will not let these monsters destroy our worlds." A round of approval went through the room. Other species began to announce their contributions. The Torak, who lived in the gas clouds of giant planets, promised 150 of their atmospheric processors converted into warships. The insect-like Vextar brought their hive fleets. Each species offered their best ships and bravest warriors. Then all eyes turned to the human representative. Jiwan sat calmly at the table. She was small compared to most of the aliens around her, with short black hair and quiet dark eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with Earth's symbol on the shoulder. When she stood up, the room became very quiet. "Earth appreciates the Council's trust in including us in this defense," she said in a steady voice. "Humanity will send 1 ship to join the fleet." For a moment, nobody said anything. Then confused murmurs began to spread around the table. The Vextar delegation clicked their mandibles together in what might have been laughter. Some of the other species exchanged glances that clearly said they thought humans were either crazy or cowardly. Minho, the leader of the Torak military, leaned forward. His voice bubbled like thick liquid. "Ambassador Jiwan, perhaps you do not understand the size of this threat. Our scouts report over 800 enemy ships. Each one is the size of a small moon. 1 ship will not make any difference." Jiwan nodded politely. "I understand the threat perfectly, Commander Minho. Earth will send 1 ship. That is our contribution to the defense." Kieran's crystal body flashed brighter with what looked like anger. "This is not a time for games, human. If your species cannot or will not help properly, perhaps you should step aside and let real warriors handle this." "We are not playing games," Jiwan replied calmly. 1 ship is what we offer." Vexicol spread his golden wings, a sign that he was trying to keep peace. "Ambassador Jiwan, surely your military leaders understand that we need every ship we can get. The Void Swarm has never been defeated. They grow stronger with each world they consume. Our military leaders are well aware of the situation," Jiwan said. 1 ship. The room erupted in angry voices. Some aliens thought humans were being selfish. Others believed they were just too scared to send a real fleet. A few wondered if Earth's technology was so primitive that they only had 1 ship capable of space travel. Zexani, a reptilian creature with green scales, hissed loudly. "Perhaps the humans should stay home entirely. We do not need cowards in this fight." Jiwan's expression did not change. She had expected this reaction. "I understand your concerns. However, Earth's decision is final. We will send 1 ship, and that ship will take its place in the battle line with the rest of the fleet." Vexcol tried to maintain order, but the Arguments continued. Some species began to suggest that humans should be excluded from the defense entirely. Others worried that having weak allies would make the battle harder. Finally, Vexcol called for silence. Enough. The humans have made their choice. One ship is still one ship. We will accept their contribution and hope it proves useful. As the meeting continued, other species began planning their formations and strategies. The crystal ships of the Helix would form the front line with their powerful energy weapons. The Tauric atmospheric processors would provide heavy support with their plasma cannons. The Vextar hive ships would swarm the enemy flanks. Through it all, Jiwan sat quietly and listened. She took notes on the alien battle plans and asked a few questions about timing and coordination. She never mentioned what type of ship Earth was sending or what weapons it carried. When asked directly, she simply said it was adequate for our needs. As the meeting ended, representatives from various species approached Jiwan. Some offered advice on how to keep her single ship safe during the battle. Others suggested that the human vessel should stay far from the fighting and provide support services instead. Thank you for your concern, Jiwan told each of them. Our ship will be exactly where it needs to be. Walking back to her quarters, Jiwan allowed herself a small smile. She had received a message before the meeting from Earth Space Command. The UES Thunderfall had finished its final tests and was ready for deployment. The galaxy was about to learn something new about humanity. In 3 weeks, the combined fleet would gather at the Meridian Expanse to face the Void Swarm. Over 1,400 ships from across the galaxy would form the greatest military force ever assembled. They would fight for the survival of all civilized life, and among them, looking small and insignificant, would be one ship from Earth. The aliens had no idea what was coming. 3 weeks later, the Meridian Expanse filled with warships from across the galaxy. The sight was incredible. Over 1,400 vessels of every shape and size floated in perfect formations. Crystal ships that looked like living diamonds sparkled next to massive spherical vessels that pulsed with organic light. Sleek metal warships with sharp edges flew alongside others that seemed to be made of living coral. This was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. The combined firepower could destroy entire solar systems. Every species had sent their best ships and most experienced crews. They formed battle lines that stretched across millions of kilometers of space. Then humanity's contribution arrived. UES Thunderfall dropped out of hyperspace with a flash of blue light. It was a single ship, though larger than most vessels in the fleet. At 2.8 kilometers long, it had a sleek gray hull covered with strange bumps and panels. Compared to the massive alien dreadnoughts around it, the human ship looked almost small. On the bridge of the Thunderfall, Captain Hyunwoo looked out at the alien fleet through the main view screen. He was a calm man in his 40s with graying hair and steady hands. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. They had trained for this moment for years. Quite a sight, said Dahyun, the weapons officer. She was young with bright eyes and quick fingers that danced over her control panels. I count over 300 different ship designs. Impressive, agreed Taeyang, the tactical officer. He was studying the alien formations on his screens. They've arranged themselves by weapon type and range. Good strategy. Hyunwoo nodded and opened a communication channel to the fleet command. This is UES Thunderfall requesting permission to join the battle formation. The reply came from Admiral Vexicol aboard the Skyborn flagship. His voice carried barely hidden amusement. Welcome to the fleet, Captain Hyunwoo. We have assigned you a position with the support vessels in the rear formation. Negative, Fleet Command, Hyunwoo replied politely. We request frontline position. There was a long pause. Then Vexcol's voice returned, sounding confused. Captain, perhaps you misunderstood. The front line will face the heaviest enemy fire. Your single ship would be safer providing support from the rear. We understand the risks, Admiral. We request frontline position. In the command center of the Helix flagship, Kieran watched the human ship on her screens. Her crystal body flashed, with colors that showed her confusion. What are they thinking? she asked her tactical officer. That one small ship cannot survive in the front line. Commander Minho's voice bubbled over the fleet communication system. Admiral Vexcol, perhaps. We should assign the human vessel to cargo duty. They could evacuate wounded or carry supplies. That's kind of them, said Su-young from her station in the Thunderfall's engineering section. She was monitoring the alien communications while making final adjustments to their systems. Should I tell them what we really do? Not yet, Hyun-woo said with a slight smile. Let them learn the fun way. The debate continued across the fleet channels. Most alien commanders believed the human ship should stay far from the fighting. Some worried that having weak allies would create problems during the battle. Others suggested that Earth's ship might accidentally get in the way of real warships. Finally, Admiral Vexcol made his decision. Very well, UES Thunderfall. You may take position in the front formation. Try to stay close to the Helix shard ships. They can provide cover when the fighting starts. Understood, Fleet Command. Moving to frontline position now. The Thunderfall moved forward through the alien formations. As it passed by other ships, their crews watched with mixtures of curiosity and concern. The human vessel looked strange compared to their own designs. It had no obvious weapon ports or energy projectors. To alien eyes, it looked more like a cargo ship than a warship. They must be very brave or very stupid, said Nari, the fleet's senior communications officer. She was monitoring all the different species' private channels and could hear what they really thought about the humans. Maybe they have some secret weapon, suggested another officer. Humans are new to the galaxy. We don't know much about their technology. Most aliens disagreed. Humanity had been in space for less than 2 centuries. They were clearly primitive compared to civilizations that had traveled between stars for thousands of years. How could they possibly have anything useful against the Void Swarm? Inside the Thunderfall, the human crew prepared for battle in ways the aliens could never imagine. In the ship's deepest levels, Su-young made final checks on machinery that defied normal physics. Massive magnetic coils hummed with barely contained energy. Power cores that compressed matter into new states of existence ran final diagnostics. All systems show green, Su-young reported to the bridge. Charging sequence ready to begin on your order. Yoonji, the science officer, checked her readings twice before reporting. Gravitational field generators are stable, space-time distortion, within acceptable parameters. We're ready for firing sequence. Ammunition status? Hyun-woo asked. Seojin, the master gunner, answered from the weapons deck. All magazines loaded. Relativistic tungsten shells primed and ready. Mac batteries 1 through 48 report. Full readiness. The alien fleets had no idea what those words meant. They had never heard of magnetic accelerator cannons or relativistic ammunition. Their own weapons used energy beams, plasma bolts, and exotic particles. The idea of firing solid projectiles seemed primitive to them. Yuna, the defensive systems officer, activated shields that worked on principles the galaxy had never discovered. Defensive fields active, point defense systems online. We're as ready as we'll ever be. As the fleet settled into final battle positions, tension filled the space around Meridian Expanse. Long-range sensors detected the approaching Void Swarm, still several hours away. The alien commanders used this time to coordinate their attack plans and check their weapons systems. The Helix ships charged their crystal energy arrays. The Torak vessels pressurized their plasma chambers. The Vextar Hive ships prepared their swarm missiles. Each species tested their most powerful weapons and confirmed their battle readiness. On the Thunderfall, the human crew remained calm and quiet. They had trained for this moment, but none of them had ever fired their weapons in real combat. The magnetic accelerator cannons were too powerful to test near inhabited planets. Even empty star systems weren't safe when Mach rounds traveled at 15% of light speed. Captain, said Jimin the navigator, I'm detecting some interesting formations in the alien fleet. Their tactics are based on energy weapon ranges and shield frequencies. And, Hyun-woo prompted, they're not designed to deal with kinetic weapons traveling at relativistic speeds. Their defense systems won't even recognize our projectiles as threats until it's too late. Hyun-woo nodded. That's the idea. How long until the enemy arrives? 2 hours and 17 minutes until they enter our maximum range. The captain looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were ready. Earth had spent 3 centuries developing the technology that filled this ship. Magnetic accelerator cannons that could fire projectiles at near light speed. Power, systems that drew energy from compressed matter. Defensive shields that bent space itself around the ship. The aliens thought humans were weak because they were new to space. They had no idea that humanity had spent those centuries solving different problems than everyone else. While other species perfected energy weapons and plasma shields, humans had focused on kinetic force and gravitational manipulation. Soon, the galaxy would learn the difference. All stations report ready for combat, Hyunwoo announced to his crew. Remember, we're representing all of humanity today. Let's make sure the galaxy understands what that means. Outside the viewports, 1,400 alien warships waited for battle. They were confident in their numbers and firepower. After all, what could one small human ship possibly do against the might of the Void Swarm? They were about to find out. The first sign of the Void Swarm was a darkness that seemed to eat light itself. Long-range sensors across the fleet began picking up readings that made no sense. Energy signatures that pulsed like heartbeats. Mass readings that changed without reason. Heat patterns that suggested things that should not be alive. Then they came into view. 800 ships emerged from the black between stars. But calling them ships was wrong. They were horrors made of metal and flesh fused together in ways that hurt to look at. Each one was massive, bigger than most space stations. Their hulls pulsed with veins of sickly green light that moved like blood through arteries. Organic weapons that looked like giant mouths lined their sides, already beginning to glow with deadly energy. On every bridge in the Galactic Fleet, crews stared in shocked silence. The Void Swarm was worse than their worst fears. These were not normal warships fighting for territory or resources. These were predators that existed only to consume and grow stronger. Admiral Vexcol's voice cut through the stunned quiet. All ships, this is Fleet Command. Enemy contact confirmed. 800 bioships approaching in attack formation. All units prepare to engage. The Galactic Fleet responded immediately. Over 1,400 warships began charging their weapons and raising their shields. The space around Meridian Expanse lit up with energy as massive cannons and exotic weapon systems came online. The Helix shard ships moved to the front, their crystal hulls blazing with stored power. Behind them, the toric atmospheric processors began building pressure in their plasma chambers. The Vextar hive ships released clouds of smaller attack craft that swarmed around the main formation like angry insects. In the middle of this massive display of firepower, the UES Thunderfall floated quietly. To alien eyes, it still looked inactive. No energy buildup showed on their sensors. No obvious weapons were charging. The human ship seemed almost asleep compared to the frantic activity around it. "Are the humans even ready to fight?" asked Kieran, as she watched her tactical displays. "I'm not detecting any weapon signatures from their ship." On the Thunderfall's bridge, Captain Hyunwoo watched the approaching enemy with calm eyes. His crew worked silently at their stations, making final preparations that no alien technology could detect. "Range to target?" he asked quietly. 18 million kilometers in closing, replied Jimin. "Enemy will reach maximum effective range in 90 seconds. Taeyang studied the enemy formation on his screens. They're maintaining perfect spacing. No obvious weak points in their approach pattern. "They don't think they need weak points," said Dayun. "Look at those weapons. Each of those mouth things could probably destroy a city." The first shots of the battle came from the Galactic Fleet. At maximum range, the Helix ships fired brilliant beams of concentrated crystal energy. The beams crossed space in seconds and struck the leading bioships. Where they hit, the organic hulls sparked and burned. But then something terrible happened. The wounds began to heal. Living tissue flowed like water to cover the damage, and within minutes the enemy ships looked untouched. "Their hulls are regenerating," reported a Helix gunner. "Energy weapons are causing damage, but not enough." The Torak ships fired next. Massive plasma bolts crossed the darkness like tiny suns. When they struck the bioships, the results were more encouraging. Chunks of hull were blown away and the living tissue took longer to repair the damage, but the enemy kept coming. Commander Minho's voice carried worry. We need concentrated fire to overcome their healing. All ships focus on the lead targets. The alien fleet began coordinating their attacks, pouring firepower into individual bioships. It worked, but slowly. For every enemy ship they destroyed, they had to fire for several minutes with multiple vessels. At this rate, they would run out of ammunition long before the Void Swarm was defeated. Then the bioships reached their own weapon range and returned. Fire. The organic cannons opened like blooming flowers and released beams of pure entropy. Where these beams touched the Galactic Fleet's ships, hull metal simply ceased to exist. Shields that could stop plasma bolts and energy beams offered no protection against weapons that unraveled matter at the molecular level. A Helix shard ship caught a direct hit and vanished in a cascade of crystal fragments. 3 toric vessels were cut in half by entropy beams that sliced through their hulls like they were made of paper. Vextar attack craft simply disappeared when the enemy weapons touched them. This is fleet command to all ships. Admiral Vexcol's voice was strained. Maintain formation and continue firing. We must hold the line. But the line was already breaking. The alien ships had powerful weapons, but they were not designed to fight enemies that could regenerate damage and fire weapons that ignored conventional defenses. Fear began to spread through the fleet as more ships were destroyed. On the Thunderfall, the human crew watched the battle with professional interest. They had studied the enemy during their approach and were not surprised by what they saw. Entropy. Weapons, noted Yunji. Fascinating technology, but it requires enormous energy to maintain. Their firing rate will be limited. Hull regeneration is impressive, added Su-Yung. But it's still just organic matter. It has limits. Captain Hyunwoo opened a communication channel to Admiral Vexcol. Fleet Command, this is UES Thunderfall. We're ready to engage. UES Thunderfall, fall back to the support formation, Vexcol replied immediately. We're taking heavy casualties. Your ship needs to stay out of the firing line. Negative, Fleet. Command, we're moving to optimal firing position. Captain Hyunwoo, this is not the time for heroics. Those weapons will destroy your ship in seconds. Hyunwoo's voice remained calm. Admiral, trust me, we know what we're doing. The Thunderfall began moving forward, passing through the alien formation toward the front of the battle. As it moved, several alien captains tried to warn the humans away. They had seen what the entropy weapons could do. No ship could survive direct hits from those organic cannons. The humans are committing suicide, said Nari as she watched the lone ship advance. Someone should stop them. But nobody could stop the Thunderfall. It moved through the fleet like it was heading to a peaceful meeting instead of the deadliest battle in galactic history. On every alien bridge, crews watched in horror, certain they were about to witness the destruction of Earth's only warship. Instead, they were about to witness something that would change their understanding of warfare forever. Charging sequence initiated, announced Su-Yung from engineering. All power cores feeding the Mac batteries. Gravitational field generators online. Weapon systems ready, reported Seojin. Firing solutions locked on multiple targets. Relativistic tungsten shells loaded and primed. Space around the Thunderfall began to distort. The fabric of reality, itself bent as the ship's weapons charged. Gravitational fields that shouldn't exist outside of black holes focused incredible energies into 48 magnetic accelerator cannons. The alien sensors couldn't understand what they were detecting. The readings made no sense according to their physics. Energy patterns that violated basic laws. Gravitational anomalies that should have torn the human ship apart. What are they doing? Whispered Kieran. Those energy readings are impossible. Admiral, Vexcol tried one last time to save the humans from their apparent suicide. UES Thunderfall, whatever you're planning, stop immediately. You cannot survive what's coming. Captain Hyunwoo's response was quiet and confident. Admiral, in 30 seconds you're going to understand why Earth only sent one ship. The bioships had noticed the human vessel moving toward them. Several of the massive organic cannons began turning to target this new threat. Entropy beams charged to full power, ready to erase the foolish humans who dared approach. Seojin's voice cut through the bridge like a blade. Firing solution confirmed. Mac batteries ready. On your command, Captain. Hyunwoo looked at the approaching enemy ships. 800 massive bioships that had destroyed 3 star systems. Organic horrors that regenerated damage and fired weapons that unmade matter itself. The greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. Fire, he said simply. What happened next broke every rule the galaxy thought it knew about space combat. The UES Thunderfall didn't fire energy beams or plasma bolts like the alien ships. Instead, panels across its hull opened to reveal cannon barrels that looked almost primitive until they began to charge. The space around the human ship twisted and bent as gravitational fields focused impossible amounts of energy. Then the magnetic accelerator cannons spoke. 48 tungsten projectiles, each one perfectly shaped and weighing several tons, launched from the Mac batteries. They left the barrels at 15% of light speed, moving so fast that space itself seemed to tear around them. The passage of each round created brief ripples in reality that hurt to look at directly. The projectiles crossed the 18 million kilometers to their targets in less than 4 seconds. When they hit the bioships, the results were beyond anything the Galactic fleet had ever seen. Each tungsten round carried more kinetic energy than most civilizations' largest nuclear weapons. The impact didn't just damage the enemy ships, it erased them from existence. Matter struck with such force that it broke apart at the atomic level and scattered across light years of space. In the first volley, 12 bioships simply vanished. Not destroyed, not broken apart, but completely removed from reality. Where massive organic warships had been, only expanding clouds of subatomic particles remained. On every bridge in the alien fleet, crews stared at their sensors in disbelief. The readings couldn't be right. Nothing could deliver that much kinetic energy. Nothing could move that fast and still maintain structural integrity. "What just happened?" whispered Kiran, her crystal body flickering with confused colors. "Where did those ships go?" Admiral Vexcol tried to speak, but no words came out. His tactical displays showed 12 enemy contacts that had simply disappeared. No explosions, no debris fields, just empty space where bioships had been moments before. The remaining bioships tried to understand what had attacked them. Their organic sensors searched for energy signatures or weapon emissions but found nothing they recognized. The human ship had fired solid projectiles using principles of physics they had never encountered. "Reloading," announced Seojin calmly, from the Thunderfall's weapons deck. "Next volley in 60 seconds. 60 seconds to load and fire weapons that could erase targets from existence." The alien crews couldn't believe it. Their own energy weapons needed several minutes to recharge after each shot. How could the humans reload so quickly? The answer lay in technology the galaxy had never developed. While other species had perfected energy manipulation and exotic matter, humanity had spent centuries mastering electromagnetic fields and gravitational control. The Mac cannons didn't need to charge energy. They used magnetic fields to accelerate solid projectiles to impossible speeds. Commander Minho's voice bubbled with shock over the fleet communications. "That's not possible. No projectile can move that fast. The energy requirements alone should have torn their ship apart." "Unless they've solved the gravitational compression problem," Yunji said quietly on the Thunderfall's bridge. "Which we did about 50 years ago." The Void Swarm tried to adapt to this new threat. Several bioships changed course to attack the human vessel directly, their organic cannons charged with entropy energy, ready to unmake the ship that had just destroyed. 12 of their number. But the Thunderfall was ready for them. "Defensive systems active," reported Yuna. "Point defense online. Incoming entropy beams detected." The human ship's shields weren't like anything the aliens used. Instead of energy barriers or particle fields, they bent space itself around the UES vessel. When the entropy beams struck, they found nothing to unmake. The beams passed through curved space-time and missed their target entirely. "How are they doing that?" demanded a Vextar Hive commander. "Those are direct hits. Their ship should be gone." The alien crews watched in amazement as entropy beams that could slice through their strongest hulls simply bent around the human vessel. It was like the Thunderfall existed in a different dimension where enemy weapons couldn't touch it. 60 seconds elapsed, Seojin reported. All batteries reloaded and ready. Fire, Captain Hyunwoo said again. The second volley was even more devastating than the first. This time, the gunners had precise targeting data from the initial attack. 48 tungsten rounds streaked across space at relativistic speeds and found their marks with perfect accuracy. 20 bioships disappeared in flashes of disrupted matter. The organic hulls that could regenerate from energy weapon damage offered no protection against projectiles moving at 15% of light speed. The rounds passed through the enemy ships like they were made of smoke, leaving trails of atomic disruption behind them. The alien fleet finally found its voice. Communication channels exploded with confused reports and desperate questions. How was one human ship destroying enemies that their entire combined fleet could barely damage? What kind of weapons could fire solid projectiles at near light speed? How were they bending space around their ship? UES Thunderfall, this is Fleet Command. Admiral Vexcol's voice carried a mixture of awe and fear. How is this possible? What technology are you using? Magnetic acceleration, Captain Hyunwoo replied calmly. We've been working on the efficiency problems for about 3 centuries. 3 centuries. While the galaxy had been perfecting energy, weapons that the bioships could adapt to, humanity had been solving completely different problems. They had learned to accelerate matter to impossible speeds and bend gravity to their will. They had developed weapons based on kinetic force rather than exotic energy. The bioships tried desperately to counter this new threat. Some attempted to swarm the human vessel with overwhelming numbers. Others tried to position themselves where their entropy weapons might penetrate the space-bending shields. Nothing worked. The Thunderfall moved through their attacks like a dancer, its gravitational shields deflecting everything the enemy could throw at it. Every 60 seconds, the Mac batteries fired again. Every volley erased more bioships from existence. This is incredible, breathed Nari as she watched the tactical displays. They're destroying the entire enemy fleet by themselves. And they were. In less than 10 minutes, the UES Thunderfall had eliminated over 100 bioships. The void swarm that had seemed unstoppable was being systematically erased by a single human warship, firing primitive projectiles at impossible speeds. The remaining bioships began to show something the galaxy had never seen from them before: fear. Their perfect formations broke apart as ships tried to flee from the human vessel, but there was nowhere to run. The Mac rounds traveled too fast to dodge and hit too hard to survive. Enemy formation is collapsing, reported Taeyang. They're trying to retreat. Not today, said Captain Hyunwoo. Helm, pursue the fleeing ships. Weapons, continue firing. The Thunderfall chased down the surviving bioships like a predator hunting prey. Its gravitational drive allowed it to maneuver faster than anything the enemy had seen. The Mac cannons never stopped firing, each volley reducing the void swarm by dozens of ships. On the bridges of the alien vessels, crews watched in stunned silence as humanity's single contribution to the galactic defense fleet destroyed the greatest threat their civilization had ever faced. The bioships that had consumed 3 star systems were being eliminated by tungsten projectiles fired from magnetic cannons. Commander Minho tried to understand what he was seeing. Those are just metal slugs. How can metal slugs moving fast destroy ships that regenerate from energy weapons? Because, said Suyung over the open channel, when metal slugs are moving at 45,000 kilometers per second, they hit with more force than antimatter bombs. Physics is physics no matter what species discovers it. The battle continued for another 20 minutes. The Thunderfall methodically hunted down every remaining bioship, its Mac cannons firing with mechanical precision. Each volley brought more destruction, more impossible displays of kinetic force that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. Finally, Admiral Vexcol managed to speak again. UES Thunderfall, what are you? Captain Hyunwoo's answer was simple and terrifying in its implications. We're humans, Admiral, and this is just one of our smaller warships. The alien fleet fell completely silent. If this was a small warship, what did humanity's real military look like? How many more ships like the Thunderfall did Earth possess? What other impossible technologies had they developed while the galaxy wasn't paying attention? The last bioship died in a flash of disrupted atoms 23 minutes after the battle began. 800 ships that had destroyed 3 star systems were gone, erased by tungsten projectiles fired from magnetic cannons that shouldn't exist. The UES Thunderfall floated calmly in space, its hull unmarked by enemy fire. Around it, the expanding clouds of atomic particles were all that remained of the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. "This is UES Thunderfall to Fleet Command," Captain Hyunwoo's voice cut through the stunned silence. "Enemy fleet eliminated. No human casualties reported." The silence that followed the battle was more terrifying than the fighting had been. Across 1,400 alien warships, crews stared at their sensors and tried to understand what they had just witnessed. The most powerful fleet ever assembled in galactic history had been spectators to their own defense. One human ship had done what all of them together could not. Admiral Vexcol was the first to find his voice. "UES Thunderfall, please transmit your casualty and damage reports." "No casualties," Captain Hyunwoo replied calmly. "No damage to report. All systems functioning normally." The words hung in space like an accusation. Not only had the humans destroyed the entire void swarm, they had done it without taking a single hit. Their impossible shields had deflected every entropy beam the bioships had fired. Their gravitational technology had made them untouchable. On the Helix flagship, Kieran's crystal body flickered through colors that showed deep confusion and growing fear. She had lost 37 shard ships during the battle. Each one represented centuries of growth and countless lives lost. The humans hadn't even been scratched. "This changes everything," she whispered to her tactical officer. "If they can build one ship like that, how many more do they have?" It was the question on every alien mind. The UES Thunderfall had demonstrated technology that was centuries ahead of anything the galaxy possessed. Magnetic acceleration that could fire projectiles at 15% of light speed. Gravitational manipulation that could bend space around a ship. Power systems that could sustain such incredible weapons fire for extended periods. Commander Minho's voice bubbled with barely controlled panic over the fleet communications. "Admiral Vexcol, we need to discuss what we've just seen. The humans have technology that makes our fleets obsolete." "I'm aware of that, Commander," Vexcol replied. His golden feathers had lost their luster, and his sharp eyes darted nervously toward the human ship. "All fleet commanders report to the command center immediately. We need to reassess our situation." As the alien leaders gathered for emergency meetings, the crew of the Thunderfall began their post-battle procedures. To them, the fight had been almost routine. They had trained extensively with the MAC cannons and knew exactly what the weapons could do. The only surprise was how quickly the enemy had been eliminated. "Ammunition expenditure report," Captain Hyunwoo requested. Seojin checked his displays. "We fired 1,728 rounds total. That's approximately 12% of our standard combat load." 12%. The humans had destroyed 800 bioships while using only a fraction of their ammunition. If they had needed to, they could have fought 7 more battles of the same size without reloading. "Power core status?" Hyunwoo asked. "Running at 62% capacity," Soo-young reported from engineering. "The gravitational field generators barely stressed our systems. We could maintain this firing rate for several more hours without any problems." Several more hours. The alien fleets would have been completely drained after 30 minutes of sustained combat. The humans had enough power to fight all day. Da-yoon monitored the alien communication channels and shook her head in amazement. "Captain, they're terrified. Some of them are talking about surrendering to us." "Surrendering?" Hyunwoo raised an eyebrow. "We're supposed to be allies." "I don't think they see it that way anymore. They're discussing whether humanity represents a bigger threat than the Void Swarm was." On the Vextar hive ship, the insectoid commanders clicked their mandibles in distress. Their entire military doctrine was based on overwhelming enemies with superior numbers. But numbers meant nothing against weapons that could erase ships from existence faster than they could be counted. "How many humans are there?" asked one of the hive leaders. "How many worlds do they control?" "According to our Intelligence files, they have one homeworld and maybe 50 colonies, replied their information specialist. Their total population is less than 30 billion. 30 billion people with technology like that could conquer the entire galaxy, the Hive leader said. We need to contact the Council immediately. Similar conversations were happening across the fleet. Every species was frantically calculating human population numbers and trying to estimate their military strength. If one ship could do this much damage, what could 100 ships do? What about 1,000? The truth was even more frightening than they imagined. Back on the Thunderfall, Captain Hyunwoo received a priority message from Earth. He read it privately in his ready room before calling his senior officers together. I've just received new orders from Space Command, he told them. We're to return to Earth immediately after the fleet disbands. They want a full report on alien reactions to our demonstration. Demonstration? Asked Taeyang. Is that what this was? Hyunwoo nodded grimly. Apparently so. Command wanted to see how the galaxy would react to a display of our real capabilities. The political situation is about to get very complicated. Da-hyun frowned. What do you mean by our real capabilities? This isn't our best technology? The Thunderfall is a patrol ship, Hyunwoo explained. It's designed for border security and minor conflicts. Our actual warships are much more powerful. The bridge crew exchanged glances. They had just destroyed the greatest threat in galactic history with what humanity considered a minor patrol vessel. What were their real warships capable of? Meanwhile, the alien fleet commanders were reaching the same terrifying conclusion. Their intelligence services were pulling every piece of information they had about human space. What they found made the situation even worse. Sunwoo, a communications specialist on the Helix flagship, managed to penetrate some of the human ship's external sensors. What he discovered sent shockwaves through the command center. Admiral, he reported to Vexcol, I've detected power signatures from the human ship that don't match any known technology. Their energy output is beyond our ability to measure accurately, but initial estimates suggest it's operating at less than half capacity. Less than half? Vexicol felt his blood turn cold. You're saying they could have destroyed the bioships? Twice as fast? At least twice as fast, sir. Possibly much faster than that. The implications hit the alien leaders like physical blows. The humans hadn't been fighting at full strength. They had been holding back, using only a fraction of their ship's capabilities to eliminate the void swarm. If they had wanted to, they could have ended the battle in minutes instead of half an hour. There's more, Sunwoo continued. I've detected manufacturing signatures in their hull composition. This ship was built recently, probably within the last 5 years. The humans have been building vessels like this in large numbers. Large numbers. The phrase echoed through every alien mind. How many ships like the Thunderfall did humanity possess? How many were already built? How many were under construction? On the human ship, Jimin detected the alien sensor probes trying to penetrate their systems. Captain, several ships are attempting to scan our hull and power systems. Should I block them? Let them look, Hyunwoo decided. They're going to find out sooner or later anyway. Better they understand what they're dealing with now. It was a calculated decision. Humanity had revealed their military capabilities to save the galaxy from the void swarm. Now they needed the alien civilizations to understand that cooperation was much better than conflict. Fear could lead to either submission or desperate aggression. Hyunwoo hoped it would lead to wisdom. Admiral Vexcol finally made contact with the human ship again. Captain Hyunwoo, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally request a diplomatic meeting. There are matters we need to discuss. Of course, Admiral. When would be convenient? As soon as possible. The galaxy needs to understand humanity's intentions. Hyunwoo could hear the fear in the alien leader's voice. The other species were wondering whether they had just been saved by humanity or conquered by them. From their perspective, there wasn't much difference. A species that could build ships like the Thunderfall could dictate terms to the entire galaxy if they chose to. We'll be happy to meet with council representatives, Hyunwoo assured him. Humanity values peaceful cooperation with all civilized species. But even as he said the words, both the captain and the admiral knew that everything had changed. Galaxy had learned that humans were not the weak newcomers they appeared to be. They possessed technology that made every other military force obsolete. The question now was what they planned to do with that power. In the depths of space, the UES Thunderfall floated calmly among the alien fleet. Its hull showed no signs of the battle it had just won. Its weapons were reloaded and ready. Its crew prepared for the journey home, where they would report that the galaxy now knew the truth about humanity's capabilities. The age of human innocence was over. The age of human dominance was about to begin. Whether that would be good or bad for the galaxy remained to be seen.